My mother-in-law knew I was earning $600,000 a month. Still, she threw hot coffee on me and kicked me out of the apartment yelling, "Someone as poor as you isn't welcome here." But the next day, she got a big surprise. She was shocked when she saw what had happened to her apartment. Before we continue, tell me which city you're from if you've subscribed to the channel, and don't forget to hit like. Now, enjoy the story. I was born into a regular family in a small town. My dad was an engineer at a local factory, and my mom was a math teacher at school. We weren't rich, but my parents worked hard to give me a good education and a better future. As a child, I saw how carefully my parents handled money. They saved up for big things and always helped my grandparents. This taught me to respect hard work and the value of money. I did well in school and was class president. My parents always said, "Knowledge is your most important asset." My mom would often tell me, "Alice, education is something no one can take from you." I believed her and studied hard to get into a top university in a big city. I remember preparing for exams with my mom. She'd help me solve tough math problems late into the night, even after a long day at work. My values were shaped by my family. My dad taught me to be independent and hardworking. He always said, "Don't wait for others to fix your problems." My mom showed me how to be strong and stay positive. Together, they taught me to value relationships but also to stand up for myself when needed. That lesson has helped me a lot in life. I always had a close, trusting relationship with my parents. I could talk to them about anything, my problems, my dreams. They never pushed me to choose a certain career. They just said, "Find a job that gives you both money and joy." Those talks helped me understand myself better. School went by quickly. I graduated with top honors and got accepted into the economics department at a top university in Moscow. I still remember my mom crying and my dad looking so proud when they said goodbye to me at the train station. That's when my new, independent life began. The first year of university was tough. I lived in a dorm and worked part-time at a cafe in the evenings, so I wouldn't have to ask my parents for money. I also tried my best to keep up with my classes. Money ran out quickly. Moscow was an expensive city. But I was determined to prove to myself and to my parents that I could do it. In my second year, I got lucky and landed an internship at a small consulting firm. The pay wasn't great, but the work was interesting. I did market research and prepared reports for clients. My supervisor, Sergey Petrovich, noticed how hardworking and focused I was. He became my first mentor. "You've got a talent for numbers, Alice," he told me. "That's rare, develop it." He gave me more and more difficult tasks. I soaked up knowledge like a sponge. I often stayed late to understand new projects or read finance books. It wasn't always easy, but I graduated with honors. By the time I finished university, I was already working full-time at the same company as a financial analyst. My responsibilities grew. I got my first clients and handled their projects on my own. It was a time filled with nonstop work and learning, but I was growing in my career, and that made me happy. Eventually, I realized I had hit my limit at that company. I wanted bigger projects, more serious challenges. So, after thinking it over, I took a risk and applied for a job at a large international company. The hiring process was tough. 3 rounds, tests, interviews with the managers, but my experience and preparation paid off. I got the job as a senior analyst in the investment department. The new job was more demanding. I handled big investment projects, worked with international partners, and kept upgrading my skills. Some days I came home past midnight, totally exhausted. But I never complained. This was the path I chose. As time passed, my salary grew. After 2 years, I had saved enough for a down payment on my own apartment. It was a small 1-bedroom place in a quiet Moscow neighborhood, but it was mine. I'll never forget the moment I opened the door with my own key. I felt so proud and free. That evening, I called my parents to share the news. They were thrilled. "We always knew you could do it," my mom said, and I could hear tears in her voice. Owning my own place was a huge step forward in my life. I decorated my apartment with love. It was my cozy little space where I could relax after a long day at work. It felt like my own world, the result of my hard work and determination. My friends often asked how I managed to balance such a busy job with my personal life. The truth? I barely did. I had a few short relationships and some casual dates, but nothing serious. Most men were either scared off by my independence and drive, or I quickly lost interest when I realized we didn't share the same values or goals. Then I met Oleg, and it happened in an unusual way. It was late one evening, and it was pouring rain. I stopped into a small cafe to get out of the storm and have a cup of tea. The place was nearly empty, just one guy sitting by the window with his laptop. I sat nearby and pulled out some work documents. I had gotten used to using every free minute to work. Suddenly, the power went out, probably because of a thunderstorm. I gasped. I had an important report open on my laptop, and I wasn't sure if it had saved. Lose something important? A man's voice asked from the darkness. My financial report for tomorrow's presentation, I answered, annoyed. I can help recover it if needed. I'm a programmer, he said, walking over to my table. In the dim glow of the emergency lights, I could see him. Tall, dark hair, friendly smile. That was Oleg. He really was a programmer, and when the lights came back, he helped me check my files. Luckily, nothing was lost. We started talking and found out we had a lot in common, like a love for travel and an interest in economics. He had actually studied economics before switching to computer science.
We shared similar views on life.
Oleg asked if I'd like to meet again. To my own surprise, I said yes. 3 days later, we had our first real date at a small jazz club. I didn't expect to enjoy it so much. Oleg was smart, funny, and really easy to talk to. Around him, I felt relaxed, and that didn't happen often for me. Our relationship grew slowly. We were both busy with work, but we always made time to see each other. We explored new places around the city and sometimes went on little trips. What I really liked was that Oleg respected my independence and career. He never asked me to give up my job for the relationship. He understood when I had to work late or take on extra projects. Of course, it wasn't perfect. We had arguments and small misunderstandings. Oleg could be a bit forgetful, and that sometimes messed up our plans. I could be too demanding or critical, but we learned to talk things out calmly and find compromises. After a year of dating, Oleg asked me if I wanted to move in together. I wasn't sure at first. I had gotten used to my own space and my own routine, but at the same time, I wanted to be closer to Oleg. I wanted to wake up next to him every morning. After thinking about it for a while, I said yes, and Oleg moved into my apartment. Living together brought new challenges. We had to get used to each other's habits, share responsibilities, and deal with everyday problems. Sometimes it was hard, but we both tried to be patient and understanding. Our relationship kept growing stronger. For the first time, I felt like I had someone by my side with whom I could build a real future. Oleg accepted me as I was, with my ambitions, honesty, and high standards for myself and others. And I appreciated his loyalty, his support, his intelligence, and the way he stayed kind even in tough moments. About 2 years later, Oleg proposed to me. It was a surprise, and a very sweet one. We were spending the weekend in St. Petersburg. As we walked along the Neva River, Oleg suddenly got down on one knee and pulled out a small velvet box with a ring. "Alice," he said, "you're the most amazing person I've ever met. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" I was so touched I couldn't speak at first. But when I finally said yes, I saw his eyes light up. It was one of the happiest moments of my life. Meeting Oleg's mom, Natalia Petrovna, was an important step in our relationship. Oleg had told me many nice things about her. She had raised him alone after his father died young. She worked very hard to give him a good life and education. I expected to meet a strong, principled woman, like my own mother. Oleg gave me a little warning before we visited her. "My mom can be a bit strict at first," he said, "but she's quick to forgive. She just needs time to get used to new people." On the day we visited, we arrived at her home. She lived in a small 2-room apartment in an old building on the edge of Moscow. The place was clean and neat, but you could tell the furniture was very old. The wallpaper was worn, and there were rugs on the walls. Nothing had been updated in years. It was clear she didn't have enough money for renovations. Natalia Petrovna greeted us with a smile, but I could feel the tension right away. She looked at me closely, as if trying to figure me out. It felt a bit awkward, but I did my best to stay calm and friendly. Oleg has told me a lot about you, Natalia Petrovna, I said once we sat down at the table. He says you're a wonderful mother. Yes, Oleg and I have always been close, she said, looking at him warmly. I did everything for him, so he could study and get back on his feet, Natalia Petrovna said. During lunch, she asked me about my job, my family, and what I wanted for the future. I answered honestly, told her about my career, and that I own my own apartment. I noticed her expression changed for a moment. When I mentioned that I had my own place, I saw a mix of surprise and what seemed like approval. Good for you, she said. You earned everything through your own hard work. These days, young people often rely on their parents, but you're independent. Her comment made me feel a bit more relaxed. It seemed like she respected that I could stand on my own. While we were having tea, the conversation turned to the future. Oleg told his mother that we were planning to get married. She smiled, but not warmly. It felt a little distant. That's a serious step, she said. I hope you've really thought it through, looking at both of us. I also noticed she brought up Oleg's ex-girlfriend more than once, always calling her by name. Sveta loved to cook, she'd say. It didn't feel great, but I told myself not to take it personally. This was our first meeting after all. Maybe she just needed time to accept that Oleg was in a serious relationship now. Before we left, I noticed that the bathroom faucet was leaking and the hallway wallpaper was peeling. I felt bad for her. It was clear she was struggling to keep the apartment in good shape. On the way home, I said to Oleg, let's help your mom fix up the apartment. I've been wanting to offer for a long time, he said, grateful. But she's proud. She doesn't like to ask for help. Of course I'm okay with it, I said. She's your mother, and I want her to be comfortable. And that's how my first meeting with my future mother-in-law went. I had mixed feelings. On one hand, she was polite and welcoming. On the other, I could feel that she was still unsure about me. But I hoped, in time, we'd find common ground. The next few months were all about planning the wedding. Oleg and I decided to keep it simple, just a small ceremony with close friends and family. Natalia Petrovna got involved in the preparations. She gave us advice, helped us pick a restaurant, and helped plan the menu. I noticed her attitude toward me started to warm up, especially after we began helping with her apartment. We bought materials, hired workers for the major repairs, and did the finishing touches ourselves on the weekends. She was touched by our care and often thanked me for being thoughtful. You know, Elisa, I'm really glad Oleg chose you, his mother told me one day while we were picking out new curtains for her living room. You're caring and responsible. I can see how much you love each other. Those words meant a lot to me. I truly wanted to have a good relationship with Oleg's mom, and it felt like we were getting there. Our wedding day was beautiful. We had a small ceremony at the registry office, followed by a cozy dinner at a nice little restaurant. Natalia Petrovna got emotional and even cried a little when Oleg said his vows. My parents had come from our hometown, and they were overjoyed too. It really felt like the beginning of a new chapter in my life. After the wedding, Oleg and I stayed in my apartment. We had talked about buying a bigger place, but we decided to wait. We were both focused on our careers and wanted to save up for a better home first. The first few months of married life were happy. We were getting used to being husband and wife, enjoying our time together and making future plans. Natalia Petrovna often came to visit. She brought homemade baked goods and always asked how we were doing. I tried to be thoughtful. I invited her to family dinners and sometimes asked for her advice about household stuff. It seemed like she appreciated that. But at times, I noticed she got a little too involved in our personal life. Sometimes she would show up unannounced. She gave me advice I didn't ask for, especially about housework, and she occasionally made comments about my cooking. I tried not to take it personally. I understood that Oleg had always been the center of her world, and it must have been hard for her to accept that he now had a family of his own. Oleg noticed it too, and would gently remind her that we needed our own space. She would get a bit hurt at first, but after a while, she'd return to being warm and kind. I could tell she was really trying to build a good relationship with me, and I appreciated that. Overall, our family life was off to a good start. Oleg and I supported each other at work, spent our weekends together, and made plans for the future. Despite the small bumps, it felt like Natalia Petrovna had accepted me and was happy for us. Time passed. Oleg and I settled into married life. We split household chores and created little family traditions. Even though the apartment was small, it truly felt like home. Together, we picked out new furniture, updated the appliances, and did some light renovations. I wanted Oleg to feel like our home was his too, not just a place he had moved into. Our financial situation was stable. We both had good jobs and earned enough to live comfortably. Oleg suggested that we keep a shared budget. Most of our income went into one account, which we used to pay for the important things, like the mortgage, bills, groceries, and vacations. We each kept a small amount for personal spending. It felt fair and simple. We're a family. There shouldn't be yours and mine, Oleg said. And I agreed. I liked the feeling that we were truly a team. Oleg's mom, Natalia Petrovna, still visited us often. She always brought something homemade, pies, pickles, jams. I appreciated it, even though sometimes it felt like her way of saying, I can take care of my son better than you. One day, she mentioned that her old Soviet refrigerator had finally broken down. She sighed and said, that thing should have retired years ago. A new one costs a fortune, and my pension is so small. Oleg and I exchanged a glance. We didn't need to say anything. Mom, we'll buy you a new refrigerator, Oleg said firmly. You've done so much for me. Now it's my turn to help you. She was touched and nearly cried. Oleg, that's so expensive. Don't worry, Mom. We can afford it, he said, reassuring her. That weekend, we went to an appliance store and picked out a good modern fridge for her. I made sure it had a no-frost feature, so she wouldn't have to defrost it by hand anymore. She was so grateful. Alisaka, Oleska, you don't know how much this means to me, she said as the workers installed the new fridge. May God bless you with health and happiness, my children. That was the beginning of us helping her more regularly. Soon after, we replaced her old gas stove, which barely worked. Then we got her a microwave to make heating food easier. Over time, we updated all the appliances in her apartment. From then on, Natalia Petrovna looked happier and more energetic. She would tell her friends how wonderful I was, calling me her golden daughter-in-law, and say how lucky she was to have us. It felt good to hear that. I truly tried to be a loving wife to Oleg and a kind daughter-in-law to his mom. One day, when we arrived to visit her, she opened the door with a huge smile on her face. My children, I invited Klavdia Ivanovna and Zinaida Petrovna today, she said, referring to her old friends. I want to show off my amazing kids. The dinner was warm and cheerful. Natalia Petrovna proudly told her friends all about how much we helped her and how caring we were. I noticed the happy looks from the older ladies and how joyful my mother-in-law was to have something to brag about in front of her friends. After that visit, Oleg and I decided to do something even bigger for her. Her kitchen was in really bad shape. The old cabinets were crooked, the countertop was cracked, and the linoleum floor was worn out. Let's build Mom a brand new kitchen, Oleg said. She loves cooking. It'll make her so happy. I immediately agreed. We found a good company that made custom kitchens and picked out the design, colors, and materials together. It wasn't cheap, but we both felt it was worth it. When we told Natalia Petrovna about our plan, she was shocked. No, that's too much, she said. I can't accept a gift like that. Mom, please let us do this for you, Oleg said gently. We want you to have a beautiful, modern kitchen. After a little convincing, she finally agreed. The renovation took about 2 weeks, and during that time, she stayed with us. When it was done, the result was better than we expected. A bright, stylish kitchen with modern appliances and lots of storage space. When she saw it, Natalia Petrovna couldn't hold back her tears. My children, you've made me the happiest woman in the world, she said, hugging us tightly. I never thought I'd live to see something so beautiful. After that, our relationship with her grew even warmer. She often invited us over for dinner, cooked Oleg's favorite dishes, and spoiled us with fresh pastries. She looked so happy every time we came by. She proudly showed off her new kitchen to her neighbors and friends. After the kitchen turned out so well, we decided to continue helping her with the rest of the apartment. Over the next year, we replaced all the furniture in the living room, got her a new sofa bed, a wardrobe, and a coffee table. Natalia Petrovna was overjoyed and constantly thanked us, especially me. Alisaka, she said one day while we were having tea in her beautiful new kitchen, I always dreamed of having a daughter-in-law like you. You're not just beautiful and smart, you have a heart of gold. Oleg is so lucky. Those words touched me deeply. It felt like we had the kind of relationship many women only dream of having with their mother-in-law. She respected our space, appreciated everything I did, and treated me like her own daughter. We often spent our weekends together, going to the park, watching plays at the theater, or just having family dinners. Whenever there was a holiday, New Year, birthdays, we always gathered as a family. Natalia Petrovna would cook her signature dishes, I'd bake a cake, and Oleg would take care of the drinks and music. Those evenings were warm and cozy, full of laughter and good conversations. I even involved my mother-in-law in helping us pick out new appliances for our own apartment. She used to work in a store and knew a lot about different brands and models. Together, we picked a washing machine, a TV, and a dishwasher. She was so happy that I asked her opinion. Alice, you don't know how happy it makes me when you ask me for advice, she once said. Young people often think we don't understand anything about new technology, but you respect me. And I really did. I valued her experience and her opinions. I thought it was important for her to feel useful and appreciated, especially now that she was retired. I saw how her face would light up when she could help us with something, whether it was advice or doing something hands-on. Oleg was also really happy about our strong bond. He often told me how lucky he felt to have the two most important women in his life get along so well. You know, he told me one night after we came back from visiting her, a lot of my friends complain about fights between their moms and wives, but everything's so peaceful with us. Your mom is wonderful, I replied honestly. It's easy and nice to talk to her. And I really meant it. At that time, my relationship with Natalia Petrovna was genuinely warm and full of trust. She felt like a close person to me, almost like a second mom. I respected her wisdom, her kindness, and her deep love for Oleg, and it seemed for me too. It made me happy to see how joyful she was whenever we visited or gave her something new for her home. Over the years, with our help, we completely transformed her apartment. There was no trace of the old worn-out furniture anymore. Now it was modern, bright, and cozy, every piece carefully chosen with love and attention. Oleg and I often talked about what else we could do to make her life better. One day, we even thought about helping her take a trip. Natalia Petrovna had always dreamed of visiting St. Petersburg, but she kept putting it off because of money. Let's buy Mom a ticket for the May holidays, Oleg suggested. We'll plan a whole sightseeing tour for her, book a hotel in the city center, the full experience. I agreed right away, smiling. Yes, let's do it. We picked a great tour, booked a cozy hotel near Nevsky Prospect, and bought her train tickets. When we told Natalia Petrovna about the trip, she burst into happy tears. My dears, I don't know what I did to deserve this kind of care, she said, wiping her eyes. This is the best gift I've ever received. The trip was amazing. When she got back, she was full of excitement, showing us hundreds of photos and telling us all about the museums, palaces, and bridges she visited. Her eyes sparkled with happiness. She honestly looked years younger. You know, Elisa, she told me while we looked through the photos, I'll always be grateful to you and Oleg for this trip. I've dreamed of visiting St. Petersburg since I was young, and you made that dream come true. Moments like that made everything we'd done feel completely worth it. There's nothing better than seeing a loved one truly happy. About a year after our wedding, something big happened at Oleg's company. His team developed an innovative software program that got the attention of the higher-ups. The project was a big success and brought the company a lot of profit. One evening, Oleg came home beaming. "Alice, I've got amazing news," he said as soon as he walked in. "I've been promoted to head of development." I ran over to hug him. "That's incredible, Olezga. I'm so proud of you." "And that's not all," he added with a smile. "They've also given me a big raise. I'll be making almost double now." It really was fantastic news. I was truly happy for him. He earned that promotion with his hard work, talent, and dedication. "We have to celebrate," I said. "Let's invite your mom to a nice restaurant and toast to your success." Oleg smiled and looked at me with so much love. "You're the best wife in the world. You know that? A lot of women would be jealous if their husbands suddenly started earning more." I laughed. "That's silly. Your success is our success. We're a team." The next day, we invited Natalia Petrovna to a nice restaurant and shared the big news with her. She was thrilled. "My son, I always knew you'd do well," she said proudly, raising her glass. "You've always been so capable, so smart." All evening, she kept praising Oleg, remembering his school years, how all his teachers had said he was gifted and full of potential. I saw how proud Oleg looked, and I was truly happy for him. But the next week, I started to notice a change in Natalia Petrovna's behavior. She began talking more and more about her son's success. Whenever we visited her, she proudly told her neighbors and friends how well Oleg was doing, especially mentioning his new salary. "My Olezga is now the head of a department," she told her friend Klavdia Ivanovna one day. "He has 20 people working under him, and he earns very, very well now." I felt a little awkward that she was so openly sharing Oleg's income with others. But I told myself it was just pride. After all, she was proud of her son, and that's normal. But then I started noticing other things that worried me more. Natalia Petrovna began asking Oleg for money more often. At first, it was for reasonable things, a warm coat, some medicine, or repairs on her balcony. Oleg always helped her without question, and I was fine with that. We could afford to support her. But over time, her requests started to change. She wasn't just asking for help with necessities anymore. Now, she wanted luxury items. A new fur coat, an expensive phone, gold earrings. Suddenly, everything seemed urgent and necessary. One day, we visited her and she met us at the door wearing a brand new mink coat. "Well, what do you think?" she said, spinning around proudly. "Olezga gave me money for it." I looked at Oleg in surprise. He hadn't told me anything about it. Oleg looked a little embarrassed but just shrugged and said, "Mom had been dreaming of a good fur coat for a long time, and there was a discount." I felt a bit hurt, not because of the coat itself, but because Oleg hadn't discussed it with me. We had always agreed to talk about big expenses before spending from our shared money. Still, I didn't say anything in front of his mom. I smiled and said, "The coat is beautiful. It really suits you." Natalia Petrovna lit up and started telling us how our neighbors were jealous and how everyone had complimented her new look. That evening back at home, I finally brought it up. "Why didn't you tell me you gave your mom money for the fur coat?" I asked. We agreed to talk about big purchases first. Oleg looked a little guilty. "You're right, I should have told you. But Mom called me and said the store had a huge discount. She needed an answer fast, and I didn't want to disturb you at work." "I understand," I said quietly. "But next time, let's talk first, especially about big things like this." Oleg hugged me and kissed my forehead. "I promise." "Are you upset?" "Of course not," I said. "I just want us to always be honest and open with each other." And that was the end of it for a while. But about a month later, it happened again. This time, Natalia Petrovna asked Oleg for money to buy the newest model of a very expensive smartphone. "I saw Zinaida Petrovna using one just like it," she told him. "It's really convenient," she explained. "It has a good camera and fast internet." Oleg gave her the money for the phone without telling me again. When I gently reminded him about our agreement to talk about big expenses, he looked a bit annoyed. "Alice, she's my mom. Do I really need to report to you every time I help her? It's not about reporting, I said calmly. We agreed to plan our budget together. We're a family. We share everything. Yes, but I earn more now, he replied. So I think I can spoil my mom a little. Those words really hurt. For the first time ever, Oleg pointed out that he made more money, like it gave him more control over our finances. It's not about who earns more, I said, trying to stay calm. It's about the agreement we made to make decisions together. If you want to change that, we should talk about it. Oleg softened immediately and hugged me. Sorry, you're right. I don't know why I said that. Of course we'll decide everything together. It's just, my mom really needs my support, you know? I nodded, but deep down, something didn't feel right. I couldn't explain it, but I felt like something in our relationship had shifted. After that, I also noticed changes in how Natalia Petrovna treated me. She used to call me daughter, or my golden daughter-in-law. But now, she just called me Elisa, and sometimes in a tone that felt cold or even bossy. She talked more and more about Oleg, his job, his salary, how successful he was. When she spoke to me, she would drop little comments like, Oleg needs good meals, he works so hard, or he deserves a break, he's the one supporting the family. It felt like she was hinting that I didn't contribute much anymore. One day, while we were visiting her, she was telling her friend about Oleg's new job. Then she casually said, now Elisa doesn't even have to work. Oleg earns enough for both of them. I nearly choked on my tea. Never, ever, had I thought about quitting my job and living off Oleg's salary. I loved my career. It was a big part of who I was, and I was proud of being independent. I didn't say anything in front of her friend, but later, when we were alone, I brought it up. I heard what you said earlier about me not needing to work, I told her. I just want you to know, I'm not planning to quit my job. I care about my work. It's important to me. Natalia Petrovna waved her hand like it was nothing. Oh, I was just talking, Elisa. You know, lots of wives prefer to stay home when their husband earns well, especially if they're thinking about kids. I didn't argue. I let it go. But inside, I felt uneasy. It was starting to feel like my mother-in-law wanted to influence my choices, especially about my career. And that was crossing a line. In the next few months, things kept going the same way. Natalia Petrovna started talking more and more about how successful Oleg was and how much money he made. Her attitude toward me changed too. It felt like, now that her son had made it, I should be thankful he was still with me. She began making little comments about how I looked or how I kept the house. Elisa, you've lost some weight. Work must be draining you. Maybe you should focus more on yourself and the home. Or, Oleg's shirt wasn't ironed very well. You know, he's a manager now. He needs to look perfect. Each comment felt like a tiny jab, but I tried not to overreact. After all, she was Oleg's mother. It made sense she'd care about him. I kept telling myself not to take it personally. Keeping peace in the family was more important. But deep inside, I started to feel like I was slowly going from being the perfect daughter-in-law to someone less respected in her eyes. And this shift happened after Oleg's promotion, when his salary became higher than mine. I tried to talk to Oleg about it, but he didn't see anything wrong. Alice, you're imagining things, he said. Mom has always liked you. She still does. She's just proud of me. That's all. It's not just pride, I told him. It's how she talks to me now, like I should quit my job because you earn more. She keeps dropping hints. Oleg waved it off. She's just worried you're working too hard. A lot of wives stop working when their husbands can support the family. But I'm not a lot of wives, I said firmly. You know how much I love my job and how important my career is to me. Of course I do, Oleg said. I support you completely. Just don't let it bother you. I tried to follow his advice, but it got harder each month. Natalia Petrovna stopped hinting and started saying it openly. A woman shouldn't be running around at work all day. A real wife should create a warm, cozy home, not chase a career. At the same time, she started expecting more from Oleg, asking him for money more often. A new fur coat, a spa vacation. renovating the bathroom. Oleg never said no. He would just say, Alice, my mom did everything for me. She raised me on her own, gave me a good education. Now it's my turn to take care of her. And I really didn't mind helping. I wanted to take care of her too. Helping Oleg's mom felt right and natural. But I started to get worried. It seemed like Natalia Petrovna thought Oleg's new high salary was her personal win, like she had the right to spend his money however she wanted. At the same time, I felt like she no longer valued my role in the family. Even though I still contributed a lot to our budget, kept our home cozy, and always supported Oleg in everything he did. One day, while we were shopping for Oleg's birthday present, she said, "Let's get him a good Swiss watch. He's a manager now, he needs to look the part." But the watch she picked out was super expensive. I said, "Natalia Petrovna, that's too much. We still have a mortgage, and we're planning to renovate." She looked at me with a bit of disapproval. "Alice, Oleg earns enough now to afford quality things. You can't always be saving money." "It's not about saving," I explained. "It's about planning wisely. We're trying to save for a bigger apartment. Spending so much right now isn't smart." She raised her voice a little. "So, you think it's unreasonable to buy a proper gift for the man who provides for you? Do you not want to spend money on Oleg?" We didn't reach an agreement. The conversation ended awkwardly, and I left feeling upset. More and more, I felt like she was trying to take control over our money, and always in a way that pushed me aside. In the end, we did buy Oleg a watch, but not as expensive as she wanted. When he opened the box, he was honestly happy with the gift. But Natalia Petrovna couldn't keep quiet. "Son, I wanted to get you a real Swiss watch, like your boss wears." But Alice thought it was too expensive. Oleg gave me a confused look, and I suddenly felt embarrassed. Like I was being cheap with my own husband. But in truth, I was just trying to be smart about how we used our money. That moment said a lot. My mother-in-law was slowly trying to make me look bad in front of Oleg, as if I didn't deserve him now that he was doing so well. I tried not to take it personally, but over time, our relationship became more and more strained. The warmth and trust we used to have slowly disappeared. Natalia Petrovna stopped asking me for help or advice. Instead, she started calling Oleg directly whenever she needed something, completely leaving me out. One evening, Oleg and I were making plans for the weekend when his phone rang. It was his mom. "Oleska, sweetheart, my washing machine broke." I heard her say, "Can you come tomorrow and check it?" "Of course, Mom," Oleg replied. "Alice and I will come in the morning." But then she quickly added, No, just you. Alice probably has other things to do. Let's not bother her." I was sitting right there and heard the whole conversation. After he hung up, I asked him, "Why doesn't your mom want me to come?" Oleg shrugged. "She just doesn't want to trouble you. I'll just go check. Maybe it's a loose hose or something." But I didn't think it was about being considerate. It felt like she just didn't want me around. And this started happening more and more. Natalia Petrovna kept looking for chances to spend time with Oleg alone, as if I was in the way, like a third wheel in their relationship. I also noticed that after these solo visits, Oleg would come home acting different, distant, quiet, sometimes even irritated with me. One time, I asked if he wanted to visit my parents over the weekend. He snapped, "Why? So your dad can start asking about my salary again? Or your mom can give me another lecture on how to save money?" I was shocked. Oleg had always liked my parents, and they had always been kind to him. He had never talked like that before. "Oleg, what are you saying?" I asked. "My parents have always been welcoming. They've never interfered in our finances." He immediately softened his tone. "Sorry," he said. "I'm just tired." That was a stupid thing to say. Of course we can go if you want. But the comment stuck with me. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was putting these ideas in his head, turning him against my family. And deep down, I was almost sure that someone was his mother. I decided to pay closer attention to how Oleg acted after he met with his mother. And what I saw only confirmed my worries. More and more, after his visits to Natalia Petrovna, Oleg came home with new complaints about me. "Alisa, don't you think you're working too much? he asked one evening. Mom says you look tired. Maybe you should cut back your hours? I make enough now, so you could relax more. I looked at him in surprise. This was already the third time in the last few weeks that he hinted I should work less. And every time, the idea came after he visited his mother. Oleg, we've already talked about this, I said calmly. I love my job. It doesn't stop me from being a good wife. And we have future plans. We need both our incomes. But I make a lot more now, he said. We could live just fine on my salary. It's not only about money, I replied. My job gives me purpose and joy. It makes me feel confident and proud. I'm not ready to give it up. Oleg just shrugged, but I could see he wasn't happy with my answer. Day by day, it felt like a silent wall was growing between us, a wall of small complaints, unsaid thoughts, and frustration. And I couldn't help but feel like the center of all this was his mother. While things with my mother-in-law were getting worse, my job was going great. I was working on a big project for an important client, helping create a new investment strategy. It was a success. My boss was very happy with my work. One morning, he called me into his office. Elisa, I have some great news for you, he said with a smile. Your work on the Argus project was excellent. The board has decided to promote you to deputy head of the investment department. I couldn't believe it. This was a big step forward, something I had dreamed about, but didn't expect so soon. And, he added, your new salary will be 600,000 rubles per month, starting next month. I was stunned. That was even more than what Oleg earned after his own promotion. Thank you so much for the trust, I said, trying to stay calm. I won't let the team down. I was so excited. I couldn't wait to go home and tell Oleg. When we met at home, I immediately shared the news. Oleg, I have amazing news. I've been promoted to deputy head of the department. Wow, that's great, he said and hugged me. I'm so proud of you, Elisa. But then I mentioned the salary, 600,000 rubles. And I noticed something change in his face for just a second. A flicker. 600,000, he repeated after a pause. That's a big number. So, now you'll be making more than me. There was a strange tension in his voice. He tried to sound casual, but I could feel it. Yes, it's a really good salary, I said quietly. But isn't it great that now we can save for a new apartment even faster? I asked. Of course, it's great, Oleg replied quickly. I'm sorry, I don't know what came over me. I really am happy for you. He hugged me again, and the rest of the evening felt like a celebration. We opened a bottle of champagne, ordered food from a restaurant, and made plans for the future. But deep inside, I felt that my promotion had touched Oleg's pride. Up until now, he had been the main provider. Now, things were different. A few days later, Natalia Petrovna invited me over for tea. That already felt a little strange. Usually she invited both Oleg and me. But this time, she said she wanted to see me alone. Oleg was busy with work anyway, so I agreed, even though I felt a little uneasy. She welcomed me with a tight smile. The table was already set. Pies, coffee, everything perfect. How are you, Alisaka? She asked, pouring coffee. How's work? Everything's fine. Thank you, I said politely. Work was going well, but I didn't mention my promotion or my new, much higher salary. Oleg and I had agreed not to tell her for now, to avoid questions and extra requests. Things are going well for Oleg, Natalia Petrovna said proudly. Head of department. Good salary. I always knew my son would go far. I smiled and nodded. I didn't want to get into any talks about money. Yes, Oleg is doing great. We're both happy for him. Then her tone suddenly changed. Elisa, I wanted to talk about something serious, she said. About how you and Oleg handle your money. I tensed up. That opening didn't sound good. In what way, Natalia Petrovna? I asked. She spoke more sharply now. It seems to me like you control the family budget too much. Oleg makes good money now, but you keep saving and saying no all the time. That's not right. We're just trying to manage our money wisely, I replied calmly. We have future goals we're saving for. What goal is more important than helping his own mother? She snapped. I asked Oleg for help buying new furniture for my living room, and he said you couldn't spare the money right now. But you two had no problem going to the beach last summer. We've always helped you, Natalia Petrovna, I reminded her. The kitchen, appliances, the whole renovation. Yes, you used to help, she interrupted. But now that Oleg finally earns real money, you've become stingy. You don't let him help his own mother, she snapped. You take control of everything. I felt anger rising in me, but I tried to stay calm. That's not true, I said. Oleg and I make financial decisions together. That's how a healthy marriage works. Healthy, she scoffed, throwing up her hands. A healthy relationship is when a son looks after his mother, not when every penny is counted, even when he earns well. Oleg does take care of you, I reminded her. But we also have other responsibilities, like our mortgage and saving for the future. Natalia Petrovna gave a mocking laugh. I know exactly what this is. You're just jealous. You can't stand that he earns more than you now. You want to control everything, make all the decisions feel important. Her words hit hard. My face turned red with frustration. That's absolutely not true, I said, keeping my voice steady. And, by the way, my salary also went up after my promotion. Oh, please, she waved me off. What do you earn? Maybe 80 or 100,000. Oleska brings in much more than that. I hesitated. Should I tell her the truth? Oleg and I had agreed not to share the exact amount of my new salary, mainly to avoid exactly this kind of conversation. But her smug tone and unfair accusations pushed me over the edge. You're wrong, Natalia Petrovna, I said. My role at work has changed. I was promoted to deputy, head of department. She raised her eyebrows sarcastically. And what? Now you earn 120 instead of 80. And you think that's something to brag about? Please, Oleg earns way more. Something in me snapped. I earn 600,000 rubles a month, I said clearly. That's significantly more than Oleg. And a large part of what we spent helping you, your kitchen, the appliances, the renovation, that came from my income.
She froze, stunned.
For a moment, she didn't know what to say. Her face went from disbelief to shock to pure rage. You're lying, she yelled. Where would you get that kind of money? You just made that up to insult my son. It's true, I said. If you want proof, I can show you my salary slip. Natalia Petrovna's face turned purple with fury. She stood up, grabbed her cup of hot coffee, and suddenly threw it straight in my face. Get out of my house, she screamed. A weak woman like you doesn't belong here. My son will take care of me. He makes way more than you. The hot coffee burned my skin. I gasped from the pain and shock, jumping back. The coffee soaked my blouse and ran down my face and neck. Are you crazy? I shouted, grabbing a napkin and trying to wipe it off. Get out, she yelled again, pointing at the door. And don't you dare ever come back into this apartment. Stunned and deeply hurt, I grabbed my bag and rushed out. I couldn't believe what had just happened. After everything I had done for Oleg's mother over the years, she had thrown me out like this. On the way home, I tried calling Oleg, but he didn't answer. He was in an important meeting. When I got home, I took a shower, washed the coffee off, and treated the burns on my skin with cream. The pain on my skin faded, but the emotional wound felt much worse. When Oleg came home in the evening, I told him everything, what she said, how she treated me, and how she poured coffee on me and kicked me out. Oleg was furious. He tried calling her right away, but she wouldn't answer. So, despite the late hour, he got dressed and went to her place. I didn't go. I didn't want to see her again. He came back late. His face was serious and cold. I talked to my mom, he said. She admitted she threw the coffee, but she says you provoked her, that you were arrogant and lied about your salary. So, she still thinks I made it all up, I said, forcing a bitter smile. Yes, Oleg nodded. She's convinced you said those things just to hurt her. So what now? I asked. Oleg hugged me tightly. I'm on your side, Alice. What my mother did was unforgivable. I told her she owes you an apology. She refused. I don't want her apology, I said quietly. I just never want to see her again. I understand, he said. And there's something else. I think we should take back all the things we bought for her apartment, the kitchen, the appliances, the furniture. We paid for them. I looked at him, surprised. Are you serious?
Can we really do that?
Yes, Oleg said firmly. Most of it was bought with receipts in our names. Legally, it's our property. We just put it in her place. I already called a company to come and dismantle and move it. They'll start tomorrow morning. I thought about it. Part of me felt like it was extreme. But after the way she treated me, I didn't want her to keep any of the things we gave out of kindness. Okay, I said at last. I agree. The next morning, the moving team arrived at Natalia Petrovna's apartment. Oleg and I came with them. We had to show the workers exactly what to take apart and carry out. My mother-in-law didn't open the door, so we used the spare keys Oleg kept for emergencies. When we walked in, Natalia Petrovna stood in the hallway with her arms crossed. What is going on here? She asked, looking at the workers with their tools. Who are these people? Mom, don't worry, Oleg said calmly. They're just workers. We're taking back the things we bought for you. After how you treated Alice, we don't think it's right to leave them here. Her face twisted in shock and anger. You can't do this. These are my things. I live here. No, Mom, Oleg said firmly. Alice and I paid for everything. We have the receipts and paperwork. Legally, it all belongs to us. She turned to me, her eyes full of hate. This is all your fault. You turned my son against me. I didn't say anything. There was no point in arguing. The workers got to work right away. They started removing the kitchen cabinets, then moved on to the fridge, stove, microwave, and washing machine. From the living room, they took the sofa, wardrobe, TV, and its stand. These were all items we had bought for her over the years. Natalia Petrovna just stood there in silence, as if she still couldn't believe it was really happening. But when the workers began removing the crystal chandelier we gave her for her last birthday, she suddenly broke down and started crying. What am I supposed to do now? She sobbed. How will I live like this? You still have your old things, Oleg replied. We're only taking what we bought. Nothing that belonged to you before. And it was true. In the storage room, there was an old fridge, an old stove, and some other appliances she had kept after the renovation. But they're all old. Some of them don't even work, she cried. Then you'll have to fix them, Oleg said with a shrug. By noon, the workers were finished. The apartment looked completely different, bare and outdated. The only things left were worn-out items stored in the closet or hidden in the back rooms. The kitchen was almost empty now. Just an old table and a couple of chairs remained. As we got ready to leave, Natalia Petrovna stepped in front of us, blocking the hallway. You can't do this to me, she said in a trembling voice. I'm your mother. I raised you, Oleg. I gave you everything. Oleg answered calmly. Mom, I've always taken care of you, and I still will. But what you did to Alice was unacceptable. I need time to deal with this. And you need to think about how you've been acting. What did I even do? She cried. Okay, maybe I got carried away with the coffee, but she insulted me first. She lied to you about her salary to make you look bad. Alice didn't lie, Oleg said, sounding tired. She really earns $600,000 a month. She's always supported me and never once tried to bring me down. Unlike you, she respects me and cares about how I feel. Natalia Petrovna turned pale. She looked from Oleg to me, confused. You mean she really makes that much? She asked in disbelief. Yes, Mom. Oleg nodded. And most of the money for everything we took today came from Alice's salary. And you threw coffee at her and called her poor. Those words seemed to finally break her. She leaned back against the wall, her shoulders drooping. I didn't know, she whispered. I thought she was lying. Well, now you know, Oleg said. But it's too late. We're leaving. We walked out of the apartment, leaving Natalia Petrovna standing in the middle of her nearly empty home. The shock on her face said it all. She hadn't believed we would really take back everything we'd bought her. On the way home, neither of us said a word. I felt mixed emotions. Part of me felt relief that she finally saw the truth, but another part felt a little guilty about leaving an older woman in such a state. Do you think we did the right thing? I asked quietly as we neared home. Yes, Oleg said without hesitation. She needs to understand that actions have consequences. She can't keep hurting you and expect nothing to change. What are we going to do with all the stuff? I asked. Where did they even take it? I had it all sent to your parents' dacha, Oleg said. Didn't you say they've been wanting to renovate? I thought the kitchen and appliances could help. I smiled, imagining how happy my parents would be. They'd wanted to update their summer house for years, but never had the money to do it. Thank you, I said, taking Oleg's hand. Thank you for standing by me. You're my wife, Alice, he said simply. I love you. I won't let anyone hurt you, not even my own mother. At home, we tried to go back to our normal routine and not think too much about what had happened. But that evening, the phone rang. It was Natalia Petrovna. Her voice sounded weak and broken. Oleska, please forgive me. I didn't know Alice was telling the truth. Please, at least bring back the refrigerator. I can't live without it. Oleg looked at me, silently asking what I wanted to do. I shook my head. Too much had happened. Too many insults, too much hurt. And the coffee incident was the last straw. Mom, Oleg said firmly, we're not bringing anything back. You'll have to live with the consequences of your actions. A week passed. Oleg and I moved on with our lives and made plans for the future. His mother tried calling a few more times, but Oleg didn't answer. One evening, he said to me quietly, You know, Alice, I always thought my mom was a selfless person who gave everything for me. But now I see how selfish and manipulative she really is. I was blind. A month later, we heard that his mother had asked her sister for help. She helped her buy new appliances. And 3 months after that, Oleg and I found out we were going to have a baby. It was the happiest news, and I hoped it might finally soften things between us and my mother-in-law. But when Oleg told her she was going to be a grandmother, she just gave us a cold, emotionless congratulations. Her pride didn't let her take the first step toward making peace. Today, when I look at how things turned out, I don't regret anything. I stood up for myself. I protected my dignity and made it clear that I won't let anyone, not even my husband's mother, cross certain lines. Oleg is by my side. We're expecting a baby. We have a stable income and exciting plans for the future. As for Natalia Petrovna, we don't really talk anymore. Oleg visits her sometimes and helps with small things, but my relationship with her feels broken beyond repair. Maybe when the baby is born, things will change. Or maybe they won't. Life has shown me that not every story has a happy ending. And that's okay. Sometimes you just have to accept reality and move forward. But one thing I know for sure, I will never become a mother-in-law like Natalia Petrovna. And I will never let money or status change the way I treat the people I love. That, I think, is the biggest lesson from all of this. That's my story. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel.
See you next time.